Good morning. My name is Dr. Victoria Boyd, and I am president and founder of the Philanthropreneur Foundation. And we are so excited to partner with Vanderson Cyber Group. And today's presentation on cybersecurity awareness is cybersecurity in the workplace for nonprofit organizations. And now let me introduce our co-host, which is Mac Jackson Jr., and he is the president of Vanderskin Cyber Group. Hi there, Mac. How you doing?
Good, Dr. Boyd. How are you doing this morning?
It's a fantastic day when we can train and help people grow. That's the way I feel.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely agree. Yes, definitely looking forward to this presentation on cybersecurity in the workplace for nonprofit organizations. And
Absolutely.
yes, I have a presentation here that shows our collaboration between your company and mine and how we're offering this service for nonprofit organizations to help strengthen their cyber posture.
Absolutely. But first, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, absolutely. Again, my name is Mac Jackson Jr., and I'm a cybersecurity consultant, a professor at a major university here in Nevada, Las Vegas, and I consulted in cybersecurity awareness, and I've provided consulting services for over 25 years in for-profit companies and strategizing. I've been a hacker as well, and an ethical hacker, as they call it. We come up with strategies to help businesses protect themselves from cyber attacks.
Well, I'm excited because we're going to really focus a lot of these next steps, and you have 10 of them, and we're going to really mold them so they pertain to nonprofit organizations because they have a unique stance on how they need to implement some protocols, but also many of them don't realize that they are a target for hackers because they have such a treasure trove of data that they're protecting, especially their donors, their volunteers, and some of the program participants. So let's get into some of these steps that you're going to be sharing with us.
Sure. Today's agenda, we're going to take a look at what is the difference between cybersecurity policies for nonprofit versus a for-profit organization. I'll provide in 10 steps to help mitigate the damages of cyber risk for nonprofit organizations. And then we'll discuss the resources of how the nonprofit organizations could contact us to have some additional services to protect their organization.
Absolutely. Let's get started.
So as we take a look at this, we look at what is the difference between cybersecurity policies for nonprofit organizations and for those that are for profit. It all boils down to the human factor that we should be concerned with. And a human factor within any organization, nonprofit or for profit, the human factor is the weakest link. And that's why having proper cybersecurity training and consulting is important for all organizations, especially nonprofits as well. And we look at this type of training, it includes understanding your whole organization, your network, your hardware, monitoring it, having vulnerability testing, understanding the roles and responsibilities of each member of the organization.
Absolutely. It's so important that they understand what it is.
Absolutely, yes, yes, definitely. While the core principles of cybersecurity applies to both nonprofit and for-profit organizations, there are some differences that can be utilized, looked at between the two companies or organizations when it comes to policies, how the organization creates and develops their goals and their strategies. Some of these differences in the policies are outlined here. For example, budgeting and resource allocations. Nonprofit organizations often operate with a limited budget of resources. As a result, cybersecurity policies might not be prioritized. Cost-effective solutions may be more relying on open source tools, whereas a for-profit organization relying their funds through investment with a comprehensive measures for advanced tools and services. So in other words, it's the funding.
Yes. And could you explain open source? Just give us a definition of open source tools.
Open source tools, yeah, they're basically would find something on the internet. A lot of companies would find cheap software resource on the
Yeah,
internet. So wow,
yeah.
let's install this program. It should
And
help us out.
and what's happening also, some of those open source tools, when you download them, they are actually a problem right there because many of them carry those viruses.
That's so true. There's been a lot of attacks now that have been documented because of these open source tools that haven't been vetted properly and have caused issues. Correct.
Right. So
So with
go ahead.
nonprofits, we have things like data sensitivity, right? The type of data that nonprofits handle is different from the for-profit businesses. It difference involves things like related to donors, the beneficiaries, volunteers.
Hmm.
This information affects the financial data for nonprofits, and where cybersecurity and the cybersecurity policy should be tailored for nonprofit companies that can address their sensitive data and how.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned sensitive data and their financial future, because if a donor thinks that your organization is unsafe, they're not going to give you their credit card. They're not going to donate the way you want. And I know you in one of the steps you're going to talk about, transfer of risk and getting it away from you. But that is a crucial sign of showing that you are valuable, that you value them as a donor by protecting them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, we have the compliance and regulation requirements. For the for-profit businesses, face a different compliance rules and regulations and compared to nonprofits, such as relating to financial reporting, privacy, um, data privacy, and industry
Hmm.
standards.
Hmm.
Cybersecurity policies need to address nonprofit organizations to focus on the best practices and guidelines for their particular organizations to protect them and also provide correct compliance. It depends on the organization they're involved with, such as
Absolutely.
hospital and HIPAA and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Great. These are all tips that that nonprofits really need to pay attention to. Let's keep
Mhm.
going.
Great. So, despite the differences of types of organizations, when it comes to prioritizing cybersecurity and adopt the best practices to protect their data, it is still vitally important that these steps be maintained within a nonprofit, no matter what size that they are, small, medium, or large. They still need to have proper cybersecurity policies and procedures put in place because hackers are always looking for ways to find the most vulnerable companies to
Yep.
strike.
And those little small ones thinks, oh, nobody wants us because we're so small. No. If you have any type of data and they probably think you're an easy target, you're prime. You're like the low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here we're going to discuss 10 steps that Dr. Boyd and I discussed and came up with that can provide nonprofit organizations with an insight to their cybersecurity posture. It gives them a high level look at their posture. There's more detailed training involved in it, but we want to have a general description of 10 steps that can help you look at your current cybersecurity posture. And remember, folks, the best thing about this is that the hackers are definitely coming for your donors. They're coming for your personal
And we
identifiable
often
information.
say it's not if, it's when. That, I mean, I think you need to really pay attention. It's not if they're coming after, it's just, it's going to happen. And you better be
Yes,
ready. Yep.
absolutely. So the first area that we're looking at is one is to do risk assessment. As a nonprofit organization, cybersecurity risk is posed with a significant threat to the operation of sensitive data. It's
Mhm.
essential to conduct a thorough cybersecurity risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and implement proper controls that can mitigate some of these risks. Some of the first steps that nonprofits should do is to identify the financial information, their donor data, the sensitive information within their organizations. Next is to look at areas of possible data breaches. It could be physical or as well as data themselves.
Mhm.
Once a threat is identified and existing controls and preventions have been assessed, then we can assess things like access controls, which we'll go over here a little bit as well. Understanding who has access or authority to look at the actual data. Remember, cybersecurity risk is consistently evolving and is essential that risk assessment needs to be addressed within this organization.
And as you have it, it is number one. It's almost the very first thing you need to do. And if anyone wants to take an initial risk assessment survey, we have one at 501c3cybersecurity.com that you can go and take today. It's available. All you have to do is go to that website, 501c3cybersecurity.com, and right on the main page is access to a risk assessment. Go take it so you see some of the areas that you need to think about because it's just answering questions. Good. What's
As a
number two here?
second option we have here is update all software systems. Keeping your hardware and software updated is crucial when it comes to cybersecurity for nonprofit organizations to protect their sensitive data. Hardware and software updates often control critical risk patches that have been determined and found by the manufacturers, and these vulnerabilities have been addressed to mitigate a lot of the damage of cyber attacks. Regular updates to software also includes the operating system, productivity software, the other applications you're using to track and store your donor contacts. Many of these software programs have flaws within them that need to be updated,
Yep.
or vulnerabilities that have been addressed by the manufacturer. So it's important that nonprofits take a look at this and make sure that they have a proper routine established.
That's those policies and procedures, tell them if it shows up, do it right then.
Yeah.
In fact, I posted just yesterday a picture of my computer going through the Windows update because it took so long. But reminding nonprofits that they should be doing that too. So what's number three?
Implementing access controls. Access controls are a critical aspect of cybersecurity for nonprofits, as it allows you to manage who has access to sensitive data and who controls it, which is really good. It gives the proper authority, right, for any organization, but especially for nonprofits. Who has access to your donors, your financial data, what are the roles and the responsibilities?
Yes. And this is really crucial because so many nonprofits work from a volunteer base. And they might be using their own computers and accessing some of your internal information. And so, who are you going to let have access? I've seen organizations where everybody had the password, and that's not really what you should be doing. But this is a key point that they need to pay attention to. So, what's number four?
Well, before one more point here is
Oh,
to find sure that the employees and volunteers receive proper training on access control policies, and that will also help reduce the human factor, which we talked about earlier, right? In
absolutely.
cyber attacks.
Okay. Number four.
Yes. Overall encryption, right? Encryption is a critical part of cybersecurity measures in practice. It has to do with making sure that the data is encrypted when it is stored and also when it's being transferred, right? Like
Hmm.
emails, that
Yep.
nature. Encryption processes can be something that can be confusing to a lot of companies understanding what it means. But again, this can be mitigated and be a part of the software systems that you're working with, such as your email, making sure that you do not have any of your donors or supporters send you personal information like credit card numbers within an email, right? Never have the email, the credit card number, expiration date, none of that sent to
Yeah.
within the should all be controlled within a software application that is secured and locked down that can encrypt the data.
And encryption is so important because it's I'm going to say digitally or electronically driven, but I've gone to so many events where they're asking for donations and they're having people fill out a form, a physical form. Please stop. I'm just saying, please stop doing that because now you have put a credit card information on a piece of paper that could get lost, copied, or anything. So, what's number five? That's just
Absolutely. You're actually creating currency on a piece of paper. So if a blank form has nothing on it, it's not worth anything. But as soon as they put information on it that's sensitive, which is our next slide, that piece of paper is now have
valuable. Yeah.
turned into currency.
Hmm.
So when we look at sensitive data for nonprofits, right? Data sensitivity is a critical aspect of nonprofit organizations and commercial organizations as well when it comes to cybersecurity. Nonprofit organizations, sensitive data may also include personal information about the donors, the beneficiaries, the volunteers, as well as details about any projects or programs that are being undertaken by the organization. This information, folks, is critical and it is valuable in the darknet. Hackers would love to get a part of this information to blackmail the organizations, to extort, or to try to sell it to your competition. Consequently, these policies must focus in on authorization access and making sure that it's in the hands of the right people. Data sensitivity plays a critical role in cybersecurity policies for nonprofit organizations, and it should be developed and tailored to their specific needs. The sensitivity includes things like personal identifiable information, name, address, phone number, social security number, credit card number. All this information is sensitive data. Even the vehicle that you are driving, the license plate, the VIN number,
Mm-hmm.
passport IDs, all that sensitive data that's stored.
And one real simple one, or them to look, way for them to look at it. Just look at a simple phone number, which you wouldn't off the top of your head say, well, that's not sensitive data. But if someone has a list of phone numbers, just think how they can send out SMS texts to tell them they've been charged, or to send, some type of spam or scam, uh, asking them to do something, where they enter private information, thinking it's from you or
Mm-hmm.
from your organization. So something as simple as a phone number is valuable to those that are looking to do harm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, absolutely. And that information, again, it is knowledge and information is the new currency. That is the slogan that we're using in cybersecurity world and my industry where we talk about knowledge is the new currency. And that knowledge is definitely valuable and hackers are definitely looking to get that data.
Absolutely. Number six.
All right. Let's see. So number six, we talk about have an updated incident response plan. Notice I said the word updated, meaning that you do not just have a plan sketched out from 5 years ago and expect it to be the same way.
Unfortunately, I don't think many nonprofits have a plan at all.
Yeah, yeah, that's that you're from working with you and from tell me you're absolutely right. That's really interesting to see that because they're concentrating on other things. They're busy concentrating on their programs, right,
Hmm.
and their projects they're working on. Having a response plan. What does that basically mean? Well, that means that just basically a foreseeability and what if analysis, right? A response plan. If you have a so-called incident in your organization that there's has been a cyber threat that have could possibly expose information of your donors and your projects, what do you do? You should have a response plan defined, meaning that who's the first person you contact?
Hmm.
You know, not just IT. It should be more than just that. Do you contact the authorities, law enforcement? Should be contacted. Yes, your donors should also be contacted as well. The software company that maintains your data, they also should have a response plan as well. So my advice would be to make sure that in the stream of contacts where personal data is being transferred back and forth within your organization and your third party group, like your software company, you should make sure you have a incident response plan identified and worked with and have a way to mitigate if
Yep,
there's a cyber attack.
absolutely.
All right. Our next one, remote workers protocol, right? Remote workers.
Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers.
Yes, yes. And because of the pandemic, lots of us have been working at home, slowly coming back to the workforce. But when we work from home, a lot of times we do not have the same situation. Well, I shouldn't say we, because usually cybersecurity people usually have it, but it's the workers, right? When they work at home, they normally do not have the same technology set up in their home as they do at work, right? You
Right.
have a company comes in and make sure that the hardware and software is set up correctly for work, but your home is usually done different because you have a lot of personal information that you use for your home. And that home environment needs to be locked down as well with proper cybersecurity protocols such as VPNs, virtual private networks. It should be set up. Antivirus software should also be set up. And will the workers that are working from home have their own laptops? And if they have their own laptops, that laptop itself should be locked down. Or are they decide, well, maybe my laptop is in the other room. I'm going to log in using my desktop, my home computer system to the company. That home computer system should also make sure it has proper policies implemented, SOPs, standing operating procedures set up
Hmm.
to operate them as well.
Or some of the protocols could be, and this is by just listening to you right now, that they can't use but one authorized computer or, to access, or that all of the data is not on individual computers, but they must use a cloud-based point where things are stored, so nothing is stored on their computer. Just popped in my head as you were talking.
Yeah, very, very good point. Yes, and it must be established where remote workers are trained as well in their roles and responsibility when it comes to cybersecurity. So in other words, folks, what we're saying is you have your current policies, your goals, or objectives of your company already written out, which is great. All organizations should have this. What we're saying is let's infuse cybersecurity within your current policy structure. Now have a separate policy for cyber, but have it as a part of your business operations. So it kind of flows with your organization.
It's part of
And
the culture. It's how it's your like you said, standard operating procedures within the culture of how you do business.
absolutely. Now, number eight. Number eight is huge. One of the biggest threats when it comes to organizations is a cyber attack, and especially nonprofit organizations like hospitals and clinics. The healthcare industry is the number one source of ransomware attacks where hackers are looking to lock up systems and extort monies from these particular organizations. But hackers also know that the nonprofits would pay for these extortion attacks because there's patient lives that online here,
Hmm.
basically. And it would disturb the operation and cause definitely an increased number of financial losses and damage to the company's reputation as well. Nonprofits also have been targeted for this because their lack of proper cybersecurity education and
Yep.
procedure set. So ransomware is huge, folks, and definitely should be recommended that organizations have proper ransomware training and what to avoid. How does it happen? A lot of times it happens from an email. Social engineering is another way that can be attacked. A phishing attack and spear phishing attacks as well. These terminologies and terms we'll talk about later, how you could educate what these terms actually mean, but these are type of attacks that can happen with nonprofits.
Yes, and this is different from when we talked earlier about your software like Windows updates and things like this. This is the next level, I would say. Because some people
Yes,
confuse the two and say, "Oh, I have malware. I don't need to do the Windows update." Uh,
right.
no.
So true, so true. Yeah, they think they have, oh, I have malware, you know, I don't need the Windows updates. Yes, they definitely have the Windows updates for protection because once malware gets in, it could possibly lead to ransomware attacks.
Okay, great.
But we have another way, a third party way that companies can, not especially nonprofits, can protect themselves, right? And that is with liability insurance. Cyber insurance become an increasingly important to organizations, including nonprofits, as they face a growing number of cyber attacks through data breaches, ransomware attacks, and other incidences. As a nonprofit organization, often operate with limited resources, cybersecurity policies can provide financial protection and protect their organization in the event there was a cyber attack, helping them to mitigate potential losses and safeguard organization's reputation. It's very, very important.
Reputation.
So, again, let's reiterate that there's three areas that are concerned for businesses, and that's um, financial losses, business reputation, and legal entanglements. Those
Hmm.
are three areas that companies are very, very concerned with. Having a proper cybersecurity policy can help mitigate some of this. And a lot of times companies think that, well, we have general business insurance that protects our organization, but it's not cyber. It's like having your car insurance or home insurance for your house, and you get a flood, and the flood, your home policy doesn't include flood.
Yeah, yeah, that's hey, from experience, you have to have that part in your insurance. But also, just thinking about one of the key things you said that is really apropos for nonprofits is that whole reputation thing.
Mhm.
Because we're not selling a product where people can rate it. We're living off of our reputation, what we do, the impact we have in the community. And if people are afraid of you, you know, oh, their data's hacked, or you're going to lose to that financial
Yes.
stability. It's going to not only from if a hacker comes after you and says we want this amount of money, but your donations might be impacted because people, your reputation has been tarnished. So it's a double-sided sword over here in the nonprofit sector.
Yes, it really is. So that's something that liability insurance can cover: data breach responses, ransomware and extortion, business interruption, and third-party liability. Think about it, folks. Third-party liability, which we call the transfer of risk.
Yes, we talked about that. Yes.
Nonprofit organizations may be liable for damages by third-party organizations, right? Because you have taken a donor's information from your company, but you transfer their data over to a third party, a cloud company, to store it. If that storage company has a data breach, you could become liable. Having a cyber liability insurance can give you an extra layer of protection to help your organization to avoid these fees and fines and penalties.
And really briefly, you mentioned the term transfer of risk. So that nonprofits, because they are often taking donations and they try to do it on their own website internally, yes, the insurance could cover them for that, but a good step is to use some of the financial processors, PayPal, Stripe, Square, because they do big time protection on their own side. Plus, you have transferred the risk of all that liability over to them to manage that data. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to throw that transfer of risk in another light for nonprofits.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So, how does this happen, and what should nonprofits do to protect themselves? One of the things they can do is to make sure they have a proper cybersecurity awareness training program established for their organization. This will help them protect their sensitive data and to ensure the organization has ongoing operations and reputational protection, especially for the board directors, staff, and volunteers. All of them have a critical role when it comes to securing their environment and providing them with the necessities and the knowledge they need to protect themselves from cyber risk.
Absolutely. And just you mentioned three different groups, board of directors, and I'll include executive director in that, your administrative or staff, and then volunteers. And they do have very specific roles. And you and I have talked extensively that for the board of directors, that's where it needs to start because their role and responsibility is to protect that organization, and we've had great conversations about policies and procedures. And those policies and procedures come from the board of directors.
Mhm.
So I'm so excited because we have talked about the strategies of how we can support nonprofits and our training and education platform that, I mean, we've been working feverishly on getting this put together because it needs to be simple. It needs to be, we're not trying to put more work on nonprofits. We're trying to help you facilitate what you need to have proper cybersecurity for your organization. What are some of the things you're going to be bringing forward with this training and education?
Well, sure. So to maximize the efficiency of cybersecurity awareness training for nonprofit organizations, they should have a program tailored to their specific needs and the roles of their board of directors, their
Mhm.
staff, and volunteers, as you mentioned. This may include things like workshops, online training courses, ongoing communications to reinforce the concepts and maintain a strong cybersecurity culture, which you mentioned earlier as well. And by investing in this type of cybersecurity awareness, training for nonprofit organizations, they can empower their team to be more proactive, and safeguard their organization from definitely cyber attacks that are out
Absolutely. So we
there.
came together to make sure that they get that training and education. Now, because your focus has been mainly the for-profit side, we're crafting new training for the nonprofit sector. If they go to 501c3cybersecurity.com, they'll find everything they need based on
Excellent.
this. But this is what we are putting together, and we've been literally working for months, just structurally thinking about it, and we don't want to put something out there that was just thrown together. We have gone through stages of putting together training that will first be comprehensive, just like you have there. Then it will provide ongoing access. The whole platform, we've mapped it out, and provide that security assessment, which is number one thing to do for you. Anything else you want to bring forward?
Well, I'm excited for this partnership. I think it's a great idea to bring cybersecurity into nonprofits and make sure they are aware of the risk and what's going on with nonprofits. So I definitely look forward to working with you, Dr. Boyd, and working with nonprofit organizations. Definitely go to our websites
Yep.
and find out information about it. You can have access to our online courses too that
Yep.
established coming.
Or they can schedule a chat, like on the 501c3 cybersecurity.com. There's a place where they can schedule a chat with you personally and get some one-on-one insight, or with me if you need more information on that nonprofit side. We are here to serve, because as we've said, it's not if you get hacked, it's when, and we want to make sure that you have everything in place before that happens. So thank you for attending or watching, and we will hopefully see you at another training that's coming up soon.